Hello and welcome back everyone to Stylized Environments with Blender for Geometry Nodes. In the last lesson, we left ourselves off by creating the top section of the roof, and we have some tiles over here, but we're still not quite done with that. We did add the material for the tiles, but the style itself and the overall setup is still not quite done. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves this tile set and start working with it. And actually for this particular part, I will go back to modeling part instead of just keeping it up within the UV section, just so we could see it more clearly what we're doing, what we're dealing with, that is. And I'm going to extend this a little bit as well, so we could see the overall geometry setup. So the first thing that we want to do is, if you go on to the reference, is have a look how the tile is set up. And instead of just square ones, which is a more modern type of a look, what we want to do is we want to make sure we have a bit of a curve at the bottom, which we can do using this type of geometry node. And we also need to make sure that we have a bit of an offset for the gaps basically at the bottom, so it will be more visible, as in these parts where the upper tiles go underneath, they're going to be having a bit more of a gap. So if we have a look at it, what it is right now, it's quite there, but we want to make sure that it's slightly rotated upwards just a little bit more. And before doing that, we should probably place this overall setup on the roof itself so we could actually understand how it's going to behave. I'm going to click 7, I'm going to go ahead and click RZ90. I think that's the right way. Actually, yeah, it is. There you go. Okay, GZ, going to move it off to the side. And again, move it up to this kind of a setup. All right, so for now, it's going to be quite all right because we now need to work with this overall setup. So bottom bending, that's what's going to actually give us this nice type of a setup for the tiles. We're going to increase this a little bit. I would say we can keep it to a value of 1.3. I'd say that's quite nice. Then we're going to work with the rotation. So rotation is what's going to give us this entire rotation like so. I'm going to go ahead and set this up to a -45, like so. That's going to give us a nice base for us to work with. And the amount of tiles is a little bit too much for the amount that we're going for. So I'm going to lower this down. So I think that's count vertical. There we go. And it's going to right away going to give us this kind of setup. Now we need to make sure that it's actually bending in the right way. So let's go ahead and see which type of a setup that would be. I think that's going to be roof angle bend. And there are 2 roof angle bends. So let's go ahead and see which one we're looking for. So this is going to give us, if we go for extreme values, it's going to bend in the center, which I think is exactly what we want. Let's go ahead and see what this is doing. And this is a roof angle bend again. Let's go ahead and see the extreme values of both of them. And so this is how it's going to look like with the first one. And the other one is also going to give us, I think this one is a little bit lower, which is exactly what we want. So that's what we're going to use actually for this particular case. Let's go ahead and click 1, reposition this a little bit and bend this a little bit, and also rotate this inwards like so. I'm just wondering, yeah, we need to definitely put it upwards and increase the thickness a little bit of these tiles. Let's go ahead and do that. I do think I actually made the bend a little bit too much. Let me just go ahead and lower this down. And we're not too worried about the top section because we are going to hide this away. We're just making sure that this bottom section is nicely set up, which is what I'm trying to get at the moment. I think that's quite all right. Let me just go ahead and do so like that. And yeah, the bend is still a little bit too much. I'll just lower it just a little bit down again to a value of 16. I think that's perfect. Actually, it looks really nice. Now we need to make sure we make it more natural. We need to make sure that it doesn't look as just a simple cookie cutter type of a shape. We're going to go ahead and look for randomness and random size. Let's go ahead and see how it looks like with the maximum. And that's, I can see what it's doing. So I think for this particular one, I'm going to lower this down to a value of 0.98. That's going to give us slight differences in its scale. Tile length random. So that's what's going to give us for the length randomness. And we can just keep it at 2.1. give us a bit more randomness. Not too much though, because these are going to be only a couple of tiles. We don't want them to be looking just distorted. And we want to actually make it look like it's been made by normal craftsmanship, or actually making sure that there is no contamination from the rain going in and whatnot, or just giving us a nice roof overall. And random shape, let's see what this is doing. So it seems that this is actually giving us the thickness, and that's actually what we want. So I'm going to make sure we have it as 1.2. Randomness width, that's the one we're looking for to actually give us a nice randomization in regards to its width. And 0.98 is actually going to be quite all right. I am looking for a randomness in regards to, there we go, randomness for the tile rotation. So that's what we're looking for, to make sure that we actually have some breakage in these gaps over here. That's going to look much better overall. And increasing it to a value of, let's see, this one is behaving like so. I'm going to see what the other one is behaving like. This one is basically giving us more control over the randomness. So these are different tiles working, and I think we can just use this one over here to slightly increase it. So a value of 0.05 is going to give us a nice result. Let's go ahead and see this one. So this one is going to give us this. I think if we set this to one value and this other one to another value, like so, it's basically going to go between the range of 1.3 and 0.9. And some of them are going to be rotated in one way and others are going to be rotated in the other way. Let me just go ahead and see. Yeah, that seems to be the case. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and make use out of these two to basically rotate it. So I'm going to set this both to 0.1 and minus 0.1, minus 0.1. And let's see how this looks like. Maybe even more actually. A little bit, just a little bit, like so, giving us a very nice result. In regards to rotation, we can also play around with that. So 0.1 minus 0.1, like so, just a little bit of an extra rotation. It's going to give us such a nicer look. If you want to randomize it, we can also click on the seed just to get a bit of a different offset, and that's looking quite nice. Now let's go into material mode just to see how this looks like for the material, because we do have our UV scales. So actually by default, I think it's looking quite nice for the tiles. I'm quite happy with the result. The only thing I would say is we are missing, and all in all, it's looking quite nice, but we might need to increase the subdivision a little bit just to make sure we're not seeing any of the angles. I think it's quite all right. Let's have a look at the wireframe. And for the wireframe, it's also looking quite nice. The thing that we need to do is just put it up to the other side as well. Let's go ahead and do that actually. I think the easiest way for us to do that would be, yeah, let's go ahead and just simply duplicate it. And I will actually just have a quick check. We need to make sure we move this a little bit more to the back. So GY, moving it to the back a little bit. So part of it will be slightly extended on both ends. I think that's quite nice. Let's go ahead and now actually duplicate it. So 7, Shift D, GZ and 90. Oh, sorry, not GZ. We need to click RZ 90, or sorry, RZ 180. There we go. All right, GX, and then we're going to just slide it off, just like that, to the other side. And seems like that went a little bit off to the back for some reason. So let me just go ahead and just redo it. So Shift D, RZ 180, GX, and move it off to the side. There we go. All right, so now that we have ourselves this type of a setup, to make it a little bit different, we can go ahead and just select the other side. We can go ahead and change the seed, and that's going to give us a nice variation to make it look a little bit more unique, like so. And yeah, we're pretty much done with this roof. We can go ahead and check it within the material. We do have an option to make it a little bit more beveled in regards to the edges, but I don't think it's actually going to work for this particular case. The reason being is, well, for starters, in some cases, the geometry mode will not allow us to make nice beveled edges. So what we need to do, well, first of all, let's go ahead and actually check it. We're going to add a bevel modifier like so. This should add it right underneath it. We can check how this is going to look like over here. And I'm going to go back to modeling. Even if I were to start lowering it, it just doesn't want to bevel itself properly. It's going to give us really bizarre type of bevels. Let's go ahead and actually apply the geometry node first. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply it like so. And now we should get ourselves, and it still doesn't want to give us the bevel functionality. So I'm trying to figure out what to do here. The alternative version would be to just simply do it manually. Let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to just remove the bevel on itself. Going to go ahead and go to the edge selection, select sharp edges. It's going to give us nice selection. If it's between like 25 and 40 degrees, it should give us this kind of a selection. Now let's go ahead and actually click Ctrl B and try to bevel it ourselves. Still doesn't want to do it. I think the issue might be something to do with the way the normals are facing. Let's go ahead and actually have a look. Face orientation, there we go. We're going to have an issue with that. It's actually quite an easy fix to do. All we gotta do is simply go on to the edit mode, hit 3 to go to face selection, hit A to select it all, right click, or actually, sorry, let's go ahead and click Shift and N, and that's going to recalculate the normals. We're going to go ahead and do the same to this other side as well. Going to go ahead and apply, and going to go into the edit mode, hit 3 for face mode, hit A, then Shift and N, and then we're going to have this fixed setup. Now we can go ahead and actually add the bevel modifier. I'm going to go out of the face orientation mode to actually see this setup. So bevel, like so, holding Shift, lower this down like so, and we're going to get ourselves this setup. I'm actually just going to go ahead and copy this. The copy modifiers is actually quite nice as well. We select one and then holding Shift, select the other one. We need to make sure that the main one is selected that's going to be copied from. So this orange selection is the main selection. Then we can just simply click Ctrl and L, copy modifiers, and it's going to put it to the other side as well. So there we go. We're going to get the right setup. I think it's a different scale, so it's giving us the different setup. Going to hit Ctrl and A, rotation and scale, and there we go. Now we can right click, shade auto smooth, right click, shade auto smooth. We can go to the material mode and see how this looks like. And I think that looks quite nice. All right, so we're done with the tiles for here. We need to set ourselves up with something on the top. We can do that in the next lesson though. Thanks so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in a bit.